Okay, thank you very much for the introductory remarks, Professor Juma Kasozi. So I think perhaps people may want to know that our history with Professor Kasozi has been quite a long journey that started with a special program funded by the Norwegians at the University of Zimbabwe and moved it to University of Dar es Salaam, and we are here now. It was called NUFU. And I think we are both products of that special program. And that's why we still retain our umbilical cord. And in my busy schedule, and as Prof. Kasozi has just said, I had to agree at the last minute to have this presentation because of time constraints. And here, and I'm glad to those who are watching and listening now that you want to look at or to view this paper, which I did with two of my actuarial science graduates, Nigel Chitambo and Darren Lee. And it's work in progress, and hopefully we can refine this for possible publication. So the whole issue around this research question will come later after perhaps I just give my outline of the talk, which shall be at first an introduction and motivation, which I'll be going through now, and a brief survey of Zimbabwe, because this is a particular talk about Zimbabwean inflation. So I also talk about the methods used to model inflation, volatility, and the emphasis here is not on inflation, but on inflation volatility. And also about the Zimbabwean inflation volatility in general. So I'll then showcase some results we have so far, some closing remarks, and perhaps suggestions, and of course a few references that we have used for this talk and paper. Let's look at the picture on your screen. I hope Prof. Kasozi, you can confirm you see what I'm showcasing. So this is supposed to be money to buy. What you have here is money that existed in a country, and I think I don't know whether my cursor can show that this is Zimbabwe and that there was someone who signed that bill. And the number, you are all mathematicians, is 1 and I think, I don't know, 13, is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 14 zeros. It's called a trillion. Should be these ones, and then the 100 trillion. So that's one bill. Like you have, if you are in South Africa, that's your 100 rand bill or 200 rand bill. Another country has $100 trillion bill as one bill. So if you are an odd person, you may not even be able to pronounce this. Because normally we talk of cents and dollars and not trillions or yeah. And the next picture that you see is a smiling young man in the streets of Harare. And this smiling young man has money on him. Under normal circumstances, we should be worried about thieves grabbing what we have, the money that we have. But that gentleman doesn't seem to be worried at all. No one seems to be interested in what is in the hands. But it is going somewhere to buy. And it is coming somewhere from a bank. That's why it's actually in the rubber, the ribbons that you see. This is when things go wrong. And things go wrong in a country, and this is not particular about Zimbabwe. This has happened in Germany after the Second World War. It has happened in any other countries. That when something called inflation goes wrong, then you see these things in society. And it is the time when politicians don't smile at all when the society now is subjected to that simple word, inflation, which is the rate at which your prices are changing over time. So prices may change upwards or they may change downwards, in which case, if it is upwards, it is inflation. If it is downwards, it's deflation. Rarely do you get countries suffering from deflation. We all suffer from inflation, and every country has a certain inflation targeted figure per annum. And if it goes out of hand, which is not any country's wish, then this is what we see, that a country can have a one bill being 100 trillion and can have a gentleman coming from a bank smiling with money that they cannot even hold. And this money perhaps is just enough for a loaf of bread anyway in that particular time. So the effect is that it destabilizes the whole system, the whole ecosystem of economics and finance. I mean, like what Prof. Juma has said, we are in financial mathematics, we do modelings, we do complicated models, stochastic models of this and that. But when you go down to this and you try to perhaps use the same mathematics to explain what is happening. It has social impact, it has political impact, it has financial impact, it has everything impact, which normally is negative. In fact, all impacts that I've mentioned, they seem all to be negative impacts based on an enemy of the government, an enemy of the regulatory authority called the central bank, which is inflation. So inflation can actually destroy our livelihoods. Inflation has a cause. This talk is not going to really dwell about the causes of inflation in Zimbabwe. Some of you have read newspapers about Uganda, I think, seems to be also having a share of some of them. Most African countries seem to be having a share of them. And I don't want to turn this talk into some political jargon where we start blaming things on anyone or someone or something, but just to put figures as they belong so that we are able to see where we are coming from, where we are going. So the emphasis is on inflation volatility. So volatility is a measure of change of variability of anything. So you can have exchange rate volatility, inflation volatility, any type of volatility of stochastic processes. So in this particular case, we are looking at inflation volatility of the country Zimbabwe. I want to ask you to look at the left-hand side here at these indices that you see is 1,400. I'm saying this for a reason, because I'm going also to showcase now the inflation volatility of other countries, some within the Zimbabwean environment, and some which are just randomly picked developed countries. So look at this number is 1,400. Now, this is the measure of variability over time, starting from around 1990 or 1980 when Zimbabwe attained independence to about 2009 when Zimbabwe decided we are done. Let's get rid of this currency. It is not working. and let's use other people's currencies, with the US dollar, the South African rand being the most popular. It happened, as you can see here, when the volatility becomes peak, and that's the choice of about 1,400. Quite a little bit deceiving because of the scale on the left-hand side, that you may think here is not as volatile because now we have stretched it over a longer period. But when you see something like this, it means it is quite volatile. In fact, if you see that, and you shall appreciate it when I showcase with, say, Brazil. So Brazil is deemed to be also a developing country. But if you see here now, this number is quite lower than the 1,400. So this is about 70. And what you see now are more pronounced variabilities than the deceiving straight line that seems to be there. So if we were to subject these to a 70 scale, we would have seen perhaps more variability. And perhaps if we had time, we could then comment or ask the Brazilians what happened in this period. What was happening in Brazil in the period perhaps 1988 to around 1995 thereabout, where we see quite a strong peaks in variability in their inflation. Let's come to home. I'm in South Africa right now, based here at University of Cape Town, and so it will be unwise for me not to also look at their inflation variability. Inflation. Look at this number. It's now 6, and you can see based on that scaling, if we had stretched it to the Zimbabwean one, this would have been a straight line, even the Brazil one, and I shall showcase it as we compare them together, that with a scale of 6, we see quite some variations in a certain period, in certain periods of inflation across that same period, because the important thing is we are comparing within the same period. As Zimbabwe is going haywire in 2008 to 2009, South Africa seems to be doing better. We don't assume there is dependence or independence in what is happening. These are neighboring countries, but that's what we just see based on the figures that we have. Now, away to developed countries like the UK, this is what we see with a very small, small-scaled maximum number of variability. And we actually see a very good picture of what is happening or what was happening to the UK inflation volatility over time. Just like the United States, lower maximum variability, and also a good picture of what was happening during that same period. And if we try now just to put them together, and we now put them in the 1,400 range, and most of them become like a straight line, as if there is no variability at all. You get a little bit of here and there from Brazil, but say for Zimbabwe, almost all others in this whole stretch regions are a straight line, meaning that really there has been a problem in the country called Zimbabwe with respect to inflation. We could even remove Zimbabwe and then we get another bad guy, if you want to call it. This time is Brazil. If we remove both Zimbabwe and Brazil, this time South Africa becomes perhaps more variable. So at the end of the day, it may be, if you look here, it's very difficult to compare what was happening in Zimbabwe with any other country in the world, both nearby South Africa and also far away developed countries. So it was a particular case. So now the issue is, can we estimate, can we have a good model for the volatility? Is it possible anyway to do that? That was was our research question, using the methods which are existing or trying to improve the existing methods. So when we started this research was, okay, let's look at Zimbabwe and try and have a good model of its inflation volatility. So what we did see, of course, was that inflation itself, at some point in 2008, where you saw those peaks on the figure, I think here in 2008. So this is what happened in terms of numbers. The inflation was at some point 79.6 billion percent month on month and 89.66 trillion percent. So now a sextillion, depending on which country you are in, it's either a number with 21 zeros or 36 zeros. Let me take you into perspective what this means. If your inflation in a country is 100%, right? Not 89.76 trillion percent. If your inflation in your country is 100%, it means year on year, okay? It could be month on month or year on year. It means that prices are doubling every year. So if your month on month inflation is 100%, it means prices are doubling every year. So when you say inflation is 89.76 trillion percent year on year, it means that your inflation is 1 plus this number times the previous year numbers every year on average. No one wants double price changes every year. We all hope, like in South Africa, inflation is about 6% official. So what that means is that prices are supposed to change by 1 plus 6% in the next year, which is manageable because salaries also move with the same percentages, etc., etc. But when prices change by 89.76 trillion percent, that is not manageable. And your banking now gets quite confused when you put your money in the bank and you want some interest on it. And we talk of in our financial mathematics real interest rates, etc., etc., and we have models on them. Then there's whole thing and the term structure of interest rates, those who are doing research in them, then it confuses the whole thing. I was in Zimbabwe during parts of this time visiting. What you do get is when things like this happen, when you pick a commodity from a till and it has a price, you go to, from the shelf, it has a price, and you go to the till, the price would have changed already during that small journey from the shelf to the till. That's what this number means in any country. So you don't want your country to be subjected to this. But this is just for information. So now we aim to determine two things. So the usual models for volatility are GARCH models. And I think in this audience, you do have people who have some background in statistics and do know what GARCH models are. I'm going to just pass through some of them given time. And so we said, okay, given GARCH models, can they really forecast Zimbabwean inflation volatility? And if they could, and we get something, can we improve them with the artificial neural networks, which is a new ideas coming in right now of artificial intelligence and artificial neural networks and other related areas. So how did we do that? So we then said, okay, let's first of all use the GARCH models on their own. And then we said, let's use the artificial neural networks methods of modeling volatility on their own. And then let's compare hybrid versions of the GARCH models with the artificial neural networks and see whether we are getting improvement. So this is the purpose of this talk, right? So the answer at the end of this talk will be whether there will be an improvement when we hybridize the GARCH models with artificial neural networks. So it should be a yes or a no answer. And if the answer is yes, it's by how much. And if the answer is no, is then what? But this is just for Zimbabwean inflation volatility. The problem with these models is that they may work for a particular index, but they may not work for another index. So take it to mean that it does not mean that that is the purpose um, um, of this talk, that we want to check if we can improve the GARCH models with the artificial neural networks. So the purpose is simply that we'll do the forecast using the GARCH models, right? And then we get some results, which we then use as inputs to the neural networks, right? So then because of that, we get a hybrid GARCH ANN model. So that to us is the method of attack. So I had to, so Zimbabwean inflation is on a bit difficult to get. I had to get this from the Zimbabwe Central Statistics Office. It's a government agency that gets data from that collects the data, and then you can ask them to to get your um, the data from them instead of Bloomberg. Um, so can you unmute me again? It looks like there's another call, so that you don't hear. So okay, unmute. Okay, sorry very much. Just in a nutshell, I'm a student who tried to commit suicide, and we're trying to handle. So that's why I'm having these disruptions. But thank you for the patience. So yeah, so I think you have been going through my slide that the source of the information was the Central Statistics Office. We tried to get the data from 1980, but there was missing data from the 82 period for some reason. And then we thought perhaps it's better to skip that period instead of trying to use statistical methods of missing data and only go up to 2008. So the choice of 2008 was because that was the time when they dumped the Zim dollar to become what is called the dollarization period. Then we also chose other countries. We used Bloomberg for the data. We used some statistical indices for our research that starts with the inflation itself, using the relative change in CPI, which is the consumer price index, and you know that's how we measure inflation. And we then had our metric called realized volatility to use for comparisons. Now, what you are going to see now, I think because of want of time, I'll just go through some of the definitions, which should be standard to most of you. Statistically, you know what GARCH models are, what exponential or E-GARCH models are, what asymmetric power or AP GARCH models are, and of course, the architecture of artificial neural networks that starts with input layers, hidden layers, and output layers. So these for us should be coming from the GARCH models. That should be our input, the outputs of the GARCH models should be the input of the artificial neural networks feeding into the system and hoping to get an output here of the volatility, which is V hat T. So I think I would rather skip this. If you want to know more about the technical aspects of these models and what they do and how to hybrid them, you can always request this paper. But technically, this is what we have. We are supposed to be having for the neural networks to have input and output. And technically, this is the technical know-how. And as you can see here, this is the realized volatility that we shall be using. And all this is the whole story of how we are going to hybridize um, um, the GARCH models. Okay, so I think I'd rather skip this for those who want to read it and request the paper itself, and you can go through the technical aspects of it. So at the end of the day, we are definitely going to use the mean square error as our measure of variability in our comparison. So now let's look at the GARCH models themselves, performance. So what you see in blue is the realized volatility. What you see in other colors are the three chosen GARCH models, and they are 1-1, right, as recommended in literature. So if it is AP GARCH, it will be AP GARCH 1-1. If it is E-GARCH, it will be E-GARCH 1-1, and GARCH, it will be GARCH 1-1, right? So we chose that choice of a P being 1 and a Q being 1 based on advice from the literature that we chose. So the main thing would be to find what is the optimal P and what is the optimal Q. And that will be another discussion, which I think we can take along. So this is for Zimbabwe. And as you can see, the modeling sort of is fine. It gets bad here in the period perhaps near 2008, the same period that I talked about. So the forecasting almost went well. Remember, in the forecasting, we'll have our data that we use, and then the other data that we use for testing. So it will be divided into two for the whole period. As you can see, this is 2003 to 2008. So this is the test period. Okay, so we had forecasting done from 1980, and we are trying to see how it would have behaved. Suppose we had started to advise the Zimbabwean system about what shall happen. This is what our advice should have been, that perhaps using the GARCH models, this shall be bad. And yet they realize this seems to be doing better than our forecasting. But then when we do a hybrid AN GARCH, what we do see for Zimbabwe is actually that they realized is almost imitated, right? Except perhaps for this period that you see here in this period. And so for us, that is what is important. How efficient is hybridizing? So if it were GARCH only, we seem to have this, but look, this is 80,000. And this may seem to be quite behaving badly, but remember, this is 1,400, meaning that if we stretch this one to that scale, it may mean a straight line throughout, meaning better performance than what you do here. But we still need some statistics to do that, or to be able to do our comparisons. So this is the AN GARCH, and And of course, we also have another version of the neural networks called recurrent, and the GARCH one, which seems to not to be doing quite well, in terms of forecasting. And so this is what we have. And when we now use the numbers, which is exactly just a depiction of what you have seen, and you can see that these big numbers really, when you have a standard deviation such large, it is a depiction of things going wrong with the data set in terms of inflation. But for mathematical analysis, we just don't throw away whatever number we have. So the mean square error in terms of any of these GARCH models is that, but when we improve, so the percentage improvement when we hybridize with both the actual neural network and the recurrent neural networks, you can see that this is the performance improvement within those two methods. For South Africa, now you can see it may appear quite messy and not really forecasting. The reason is that we now have this, and in forecasting, of course, you'd expect all this to be imitating exactly the blue line, but because of this, I think what we now just argue about is the trend, which seems to be really almost the same over time. But of course, we get worried when sometimes it's showing a slowing trend, and our forecasts are also showing differently. But we may look at why it is so, and the other models as well for South Africa, including the recurrent. So the recurrent has been really misbehaving from what I see or what we see. And for South Africa, you can now see that the MSE error numbers are quite smaller than what you saw for Zimbabwe from our results. And then the percentage improvements for South Africa has been lower. We still are trying to get a reason why or what this means. For USA, it's almost the same. We seem not to be doing badly for the USA one, though not match to match per se, but we seem to be getting the trend slightly okay for both GARCH and hybrid models, which are supposed to show an improvement, and also the recurrent one, which I think from what we see is actually off the mark as compared to the artificial neural networks. And the loss functions and percentage improvements also as coming from data, the UK in the same way. So I think just to save our time, what I can say is the worst result that we got was Brazil for some reason. We are trying to get from the economy of the country what this means, why really Brazil is behaving so badly. We don't want to believe that our model is really that bad that it can be way off the mark, especially the AP GARCH versus reality and versus the others. But it is something that we are going to look at, because remember this period here is the period where countries went through different economic challenges, and perhaps it could be a result of Brazil's period. So I think what we got here is that the hybrid models performed better depending on which country. And this is for our summary of what we have seen, which I went through. That for Zimbabwe, I think the the hybrid model that performed better in terms of forecasting was the ANN AP GARCH. For South Africa, it was the recurrent neural network and the eGARCH. For USA is the RNN GARCH and the other results. These are the results that we can say. And something we are taking here from this talk is these hybrid models don't perform the same depending on each of the economies. You can see that Zimbabwe's one in terms of forecasting is this, while the Brazilian one is that, and the other countries is different. But what is evident is that except Zimbabwe, the recurrent neural network, say hybridization, performed better in all the cases. It was just a question of which GARCH model to hybrid. But for Zimbabwe, it had to be the artificial neural network to hybrid the AP GARCH. So I think looking at my time given, and sorry for the slight disruption I had, I'm assuming things have gone well. And I could, in fact, just thank you in many languages. I know some of you are in East Africa. I have a little understanding of Swahili, so I could say asante sana. But I also speak Spanish, so the muchas gracias in Spanish. And what you see here are Southern African languages, but we all are connected with the word thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much, Professor Shua, for the talk. Any comments, additions are welcome. We have less than 15 minutes, about 15 minutes to do this.
And you can start.
Any comments?
Okay, that, yep.
Okay, Prof. I can't see where I'm supposed to raise my hand through the platform.
No, you can talk. We hear you.
Okay.
You can talk since you are the only one.
Okay. Let me start by thanking Prof. Mataramvura for this very interesting presentation. Particularly research that focuses on empirical experiences, which among other things aims to make use of the empirical data that is available among our ranks and solve real problems that we face as a region and as nations. I found it to be very, very much interesting. And I can see that this is a hybrid model, bring together issues of artificial intelligence and statistical methodologies. I just wanted to find out from the presenter, from Prof. Mataramvura, if the data that is missing is going to be complemented by something, probably simulation or some results of the artificial intelligence computations, or probably that segment of the timeline for which data is not available will be discarded from the research.
Okay, so thank you very much for that question, Dr. Elliot. I think that is the question that we also pose to ourselves. So you know that there are statistical methods for fitting in numbers when data is missing. And we could have gone that route. It's a war period of 1981 to 82. When I wrote to the Central Statistic Office as to why the data is missing, you get mixed results. And sometimes I think, I understand you from Zimbabwe, you know, sometimes data is suppressed. And that is one of the things. If you are doing research that involves data, including COVID-19, you have to accept some of the issues around data collection, data curation, etc., etc. So one could try and fit in the missing numbers using some statistical and hope to get some clear picture of what could happen. And remember, we tried. If you check, we stood at 2003. Most of our, so we were forecasting, assuming we are standing at 2003 doing this research and advising, you know, each of these establishments what could happen in the next 5 years, right? So, but because we had this data already, it is easy to compare what we could have forecasted and what we realized. As to whether we could get an improvement to this is something which is debatable. But for us, I think it was a question of, okay, let's look at what we have. And the reason why we stopped at 2008 is we got a different scale from 2009. They were now using the US dollar as a currency. And so the inflation numbers were scaled based on a different currency, so we couldn't proceed. The question that may also arise nearer to yours is, what if we try and even, you know, play estimation up to say 2019, 2020, when I mean 2018, I think they dumped again the US dollar for the Zim dollar, and then things start going haywire again. What if we try and do our estimation again prior to that period? So it's something I cannot give answers to. It's something worth exploring and comparing, because we have the data. Sometimes it's suppressed, sometimes it exists. Yeah, I don't know really what could have happened if we had used the data between 1980 and 1983. Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, thank you. Well, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Chikoza from Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, it's Dr. Elliot Chikoza.
Any other comment?
Yes.
Yes. Go ahead, please.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to know, is there a paper that he can, the paper for this work that I can go and check, link on archive or something?
Well, I mean, this is work in progress. There is a paper already, which is quite, I think, almost done in terms of results. So if you want, you can write me and I can send it to you, and you can take it from there. Yes, but not on archives because it hasn't been published. So the reason why I presented is because it is work in progress.
Any other comment? Okay. In absence of more comments, I take this opportunity to thank Professor Shua Mataramvura for finding time. He's my old friend, and he really told me that he has so many disturbances, and I think now I understand. I couldn't understand earlier, but I saw it myself. There are some calls you just cannot answer. But well, thank you